Hi, I'm Alison Wilson. I'm speaking from Catalonia in Spain. Thanks so much to Virginia and Teresa for inviting me to speak. And yeah, to Victims Refuse Silence, and congratulations on getting your NGO off the ground. I'd also like to thank you for including prostituted women in your fight. If you haven't had a chance to look through their website yet, there are quite a few strong testimonies that you definitely should read of women and children that they've helped leave the system of prostitution or who have been trafficked. So I'm from Australia originally. I'm a political scientist by training and a cinematographer. I've been working on my documentary film Horns on the Woman for the last 3 years. Excuse me, slippery light and squeaky chair. It's about the sex industry in Spain, demand and exploitation. I've been invited to speak and share my research at the Cambridge Summer Symposium on Human Trafficking, and I work with organisations around the world contra sex trafficking and activists here in Spain as we're urging the government to implement the equality model, or the Nordic model as it's commonly called. So I'm almost ready to enter post-production on my film. And there's a 5-minute reveal there if you're interested. And if you do have the ability to donate or please share, please do so. Anyway, we can't talk about prostitution and trafficking in Spain unless we talk about demand. Demand is a special beast in Spain. The European Parliament and the Spanish government have actually ordered quite a few studies on the sex industry in Spain and prostitution and trafficking in particular. A paper from the European Parliament revealed that 39% of Spanish men pay for sex or have done so in the past. It's a deeply patriarchal culture. It's very difficult to challenge their values and highlight the lack of equality. Now, people are concerned because the youth market, they're filling up the brothels, and even police are concerned now. So it's deeply entrenched in society. You see largely migrant women, as 90% of the prostituted people in Spain are migrant women. White chairs dotted along the highways. It's very accessible. We have the white chairs for prostituted women like it's an office, like it's a normalized job. And they're ready to be picked up on the way home from work or after the school run. They're there 24/7. And we also have the Whiskerías, the largest brothel in Europe, in La Jonquera, the Paradise, on the border between France and Catalonia. And we also have a lot of clandestine apartments, and majority of people know where they are. Nothing's done about them, and the women are very hard to reach. So we've discussed that majority of the women in prostitution are migrants, and Spanish women haven't been represented in brothels for close to 30 years. One of the studies commissioned by the Spanish government by university and in cooperation with the University of Comillas, titled Can Clients Who Pay for Sexual Services Help Victims of Sex Trafficking? The researchers found that the majority of the sex buyers had an awareness of human trafficking. They even cited women's desires to buy luxuries and other items as an entry point for prostitution. There was another study in 2009 by Caldero who concluded that sex buyers minimized the possible situations on coercion, believing that most women choose to practice prostitution in complete freedom. So, in my 3 years of reporting testimonies, there have been so many vulnerability factors, different levels of coercion, and even in the legal brothels, the licensed brothels, many of the women have told me they face very difficult clients who are drunk or drugged. They want risky services. Sometimes they ask for a cashback. And now that we have COVID, they're fully taking advantage of these vulnerabilities. They're asking for lower prices, again, riskier services, and the girls are absolutely terrified. And recently I've been interviewing in Barcelona during the COVID crisis, and it's the first time I've actually seen women presenting with their children because the school canteens are closed this summer. And it is very, very desperate. Some have money just for food, but they're having difficulties paying their rent, their lights, obviously, all of the other living expenses. Many are in irregular situations. They don't have protection legally to stay in Spain. They're extra vulnerable. Others have been in prostitution for so long. They're so broken down, they don't know how to leave. The system here is overwhelmed trying to support prostituted people and people facing exclusion in general. And we have some tremendous NGOs here, but we need more support. I believe the government has the resources, but action isn't being taken where needed. Anyway, we know the first people to make contact with prostituted women or trafficked women are the sex buyers, the pimps, the handlers, the traffickers. Some data has revealed that the number of trafficked women as 87 to 90%. In Spain, there was a recent paper by Dr. Enrique Dayez from Hombres por Equalidad, who has he's written a lot of interesting work on this situation in Spain and the Spanish client. The women, they can't refuse clients, dangerous sexual practices. They're at the mercy of violent clients and traffickers. Many live in inhumane conditions. They suffer debt bondage, are forced to work long hours. They sleep and live in the same room. We're forced to offer services, deprived of food, water, and often drugs. So I've specifically seen this a lot with Nigerian networks. I've had many young women recount stories of sexual slavery and torture. In my film, you'll specifically hear Hope narrate her story from Nigeria to Spain. Her story, sadly, it's not uncommon, and I've met scores of young women who've suffered similar brutalities in sexual slavery, and they are often re-trafficked. They will reach a point of safety in a refugee center or elsewhere, and they are re-trafficked. So Nigerian women have been coming to Spain roughly since the late 2010s. They come with huge debts, maybe 60,000 euro, and they have to repay that debt in 2 years. And to put it in context, half of the Spanish population live on 1,000 euro a month, so it's an enormous amount of money to have to repay by prostituting yourself and selling your body. And it's a very difficult situation for them because sometimes some are offered the opportunity to be repatriated, but they're scared of the trafficking network, or they don't want to go home empty-handed as well. After they've been brutalized, they feel like they're going home with nothing. So migrants and refugees are especially vulnerable. I've seen a lot of refugees in brothels in Barcelona, and it's not okay. We can offer real jobs for people. We have the Palermo Protocol implemented roughly 2000, which provided a definition of trafficking, minimum sanctions for traffickers, and minimal support for victims. But it's not enough, okay? We need systematic change in Spain, and we need to implement the Nordic model. If pimps, buyers, and traffickers aren't prosecuted, we just create a haven for trafficking. The legislation of prostitution increases trafficking. The Nordic model has proven to decrease trafficking. When this law was implemented in Sweden in 1999, 30 years of research occurred prior. And recently the Nordic model has been implemented in Israel, obviously Sweden, Norway, Iceland, Northern Ireland, Canada, and France. It was part of President Sanchez's pre-election promise to implement it, to trial it in Spain. So far, he hasn't lived up to the promise. Just this week, we've had the Equality Minister, Irene Montero, ask for the brothels to be shut down. It's late as August. Bars and clubs have been shut down due to coronavirus, so it's getting a little late for that, but it definitely should happen. The Nordic model decriminalizes the women so they can move forward with their lives. It also offers exit programs that prostituted women and trafficked women have had a say in developing. It also provides community education, and pimps are fined and prosecuted. And the sex buyer client receives a fine as well, and it does reduce demand. So finally, I received this beautiful summary of the Nordic model from an NGO in Sweden that have been working with prostituted women for decades now. They were part of the discussion when the Nordic model was implemented. I asked them, what are the benefits of the Nordic model in relation to your work? The benefits are many. Importantly, the Nordic model is more than just a law. It is a comprehensive package demanding efforts in the areas of prosecution, prevention, and protection. This means that further training of police forces, prevention through public education, and available and effective support services for victims are all important pillars of the model. More than anything, it shapes people's view of prostitution as a phenomenon and the women exploited in it. The law was preceded by 30 years of research among women in prostitution. Research that showed that prostitution is a part of men's violence against women, and the vulnerable party is the woman, or in some cases, the man, who sells while the buyer has a position of power. The Nordic model has thereby led to an increased empathy and understanding for women exploited in prostitution, and it demands society's responsibility to offer her help and support as she is considered a victim of crime. Women now know that the law is on their side and they can speak with police or social services. So why a law that makes so much sense isn't implemented, other than the fact that the sex industry does bring in millions of dollars. Spain, I think, I have my data here somewhere. Yeah, Spain, 26.5 billion a year, twice more than the United States. And that's, the source is the prostitution revenue by country. And it will take money, it will take a huge amount of effort to implement the Nordic model properly. But what is our alternative? We're just going to have more and more women and girls brutalized as, you know, is sexual slavery going to become so normalized? I think now is the time for everyone to realize it really is a global struggle. I'm talking about this in Spain, but I'm Australian. I'm married to an Argentinian. I hear the same problems from Latin American women who've been trafficked to Spain. We know they're trafficked throughout Europe. You know, one woman I spoke to, she came from Brazil, came to Spain. She thought she was working as a And Nelly, she was sent to Portugal, sent to France, back to Spain, back to Portugal. It's just such a vicious cycle. Anyway, I will leave this video now, and I hope you're able to listen through it. You can find me at Discoursa Online or Horns on the Woman at Discoursa ES on Twitter. I'm happy to answer any questions, and I'd love to connect with more activists around the world. And hopefully my film will be released in 2021. And that's it. Okay, stay well. Bye.